ladies and gentlemen, and welcome on board the Millennium of Peace for your trip to Westminster Pier. The next stop for this boat is the Tower of London. And we are going the wrong way at the moment. Don't worry, we're not lost. We just want to get you a nice picture of Greenwich, that's all. So a lovely view of Greenwich off to your right hand side there. See, at the moment the tide is flooding, so the flow of water is pushing against the head of the boat. So it's slowing us down in the moment, but when we turn the boat around, it will speed us up. So we get a bit of spare time now. The journey time to Tower Pier isn't quite as long, so we make the most of the time that we have spare. We get you a nice photo opportunity. So you saw Greenwich on the right there, and if you look ahead to the left, you've got the O2 Arena. Formerly the Millennium Dome. You can see the big yellow supports poking out there. And many famous acts around the world have performed at the O2. It's an events venue. Follow the O2 to the right, and you've got a building there that says Modern Wharf. Look above that building and you can see the Emirates cable car. So that's a big cable car that crosses the river. So the river runs between those pylons. So it gives you an idea of how the river bends at this point. So it curves off to the left here, and then it bends all the way around to the right, around the O2 Arena, and then sort of comes back on itself, and then runs between the Emirates cable. Yeah, that's the Greenwich Peninsula. And just a little bit further past the Emirates cable carrier, you've got the flood barrier. And that lovely view of Greenwich off to the left there, you've got the naval colleges, that's the closer buildings. In the centre there, Queen Anne's house. At the top of the hill, Plumstead House, the Red Bull and T-Bar. So 5-1 every day, the ball slowly rises to the top of that T-bar. And at 1 o'clock, the ball drops. And at the moment, that gives you 1 o'clock BST, British Summertime. So we're running an hour ahead at the moment from GMT, Greenwich Mean Time. We've got our clocks forward an hour, well some of them. And the reason for the ball drop is years ago, ships would set their clocks to the ball drop. So they would know the time in Greenwich to navigate out at sea using sextant. So they would measure the angles of the sun against the horizon to find out their position on the planet. And to do that, they needed to know the time here in Greenwich. They could also navigate at night using the stars. And the boat that you're on today is equipped with all of the latest and up-to-date life-saving apparatus. We've got life jackets, we've got life rafts, and other buoyancy aids around the boat and storage lockers. In the unlikely event of an emergency today, please do remain calm, remain in your seats, and await further instructions. So don't go running around screaming. That won't help anyone. We'll tell you what to do if the time should come. It won't though. Not with us on a boat. And myself and my friend at the wheel here, we're both licensed Thames watermen. I myself have been working out on the river from a very young age, pretty much after I left school. So from roughly about the age of 16 actually, all the way up until today. I'm 62 now, by the way. It's been very kind to me, the river has. I tell you, it's good for the skin, it is. And I don't know if anyone's been on the boats already today. Some of you might be returning passengers. Some of you have been on this boat already. Some of you may have come down on a different one. And we do like to talk to you see. We like to share on a few words. Some of the crew, you might get on a boat today and you just have to listen to the audio guide all the time. They're a little bit lazy, those people. Just a little bit. They just sort of pick and choose when they want to do it, I suppose. At this point in the river, ladies and gents, there isn't a great deal of things to see though. If you look left and right, all you can see is luxury Thameside apartments, and all I can tell you about those is they're all very nice. they're all very expensive, and I can't afford any of them. I don't know many people that can afford these properties, I'll tell you. Can any of you afford these properties? I'm just asking. You never know. Not many people can, as I said. We go up and down this river all day long, day and night. We do evening charters. And we go past these apartments, and most of the time, most of the year, the lights are switched off. They're probably owned by multi-millionaires as holiday homes. And they stay on them, like 3 or 4 times a year, if that. It's a bit of a shame, really. I'd stay in them when they're not there. And they wouldn't even know. I'll clean up after myself, it's fine. Say most people from London, born and raised here, had to move a bit further out, you see, places like Essex in Kent, Hertfordshire and Surrey. It takes a little bit longer to get to work these days, but it's a little bit cheaper the further away you get from London, you see. So that's it really, just apartments. You got a building on the right, it's not really historical, but I find it quite funny. It's a self-storage facility, and you can see on the signs there, they've got amusing signs. One of them says, "Danger, if you enter these premises uninvited, will you please remove your dentures, your teeth, as the dogs find them difficult to digest." The other one says, "Warning, if you enter these premises and a blue light is flashing and a siren sounds, your reproductive days are over." So, I don't want anyone in there, basically. And that is about as exciting as it gets on this part of the river. Only for a little while. When we get a little bit further upstream, there's more stuff to look at and point out. So what I'll do in the meantime, I'll just give you just a little bit of a rest until we're sort of around the corner in it. And then I'll pick up the microphone and I'll tell you what's what, alright? Good stuff. So enjoy the sunshine for the time being. Enjoy your cruise up the river. And if anybody has any questions whatsoever, come up and ask us, alright? Well, thank you for your attention so far, and we'll be back shortly. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're not far away now. There's a few bits and bobs of interest. Starting with the building on the right hand side here, this red brick building. And it stands on the site of Free Trade Wharf. And this is a name that dates back to the Great Plague of London. The bubonic plague. You see that ravished London for many years, right up until the Great Fire of 1666. And in that time, not very many countries wanted to trade with the British for fears of catching the disease and bringing it back home themselves, apart from the Dutch. The Dutch are very brave, but in return they were granted free trade, so they would charge no tax or duties on the goods that they brought in, and they would bring all of the goods to this site on the right. One of the main things that they would deliver was citrus fruits, and they believed that citrus fruits at the time warded off the plague. And you can see a church just to the right, behind the trees, a church spire there, and that's St. Clement's. So when the fruit would arrive, they'd ring the bells of that church. You heard the nursery rhyme before? Orange and lemons, the bells of St. Clement's. And that's where it goes next back to. You see that rhyme is about a lot of the churches based in the east end of London. And they mention the Great Bell of Bow and the rhyme. The bell of St. Mary le Bow. And if you're born within hearing distance of that bell, the sound of bow bells, that makes you a proper Cockney. So just because you're born in London, that doesn't make you a Cockney. To be a proper one, you have to be born in the East End of London, within hearing distance, the sound of bow bells. I was born in London, but I'm not a proper Cockney. I was born in North West London, you see, I'm a phony, I am. But Tony, he was born over on the right. He's a proper Cockney geezer, he is. And you've got warehouses on the right hand side here. Not all of the buildings along the way are old warehouses. Some of these are new apartment complexes, and they've just designed them to look like the old warehouses to blend in. And the easiest way to tell the difference between them is an old warehouse comes right up to the river's edge. And a new apartment complex, they have a footpath in front of them. You can see the person walking there in front of it, so that's a new apartment complex there, and that's the Thames Trail. So that's all these buildings are, the old walls. They're just a raised dock or a berth that came right up to the river's edge, so a ship or a barge could lay alongside it to unload this cargo. So you can see the cranes a little bit further down. The day these cranes are decorated, but years ago they would pull the cargo from the ships and barges. You've got a wall on the left hand side there with arches and a little jetty out the front. And across the wall, Thames Tunnel Mills. You see the chimney behind it, the chimney, the exhaust for the old pump house. See, at the moment we're going over the top of the first underground tunnel to cross a body of water. So that was built by a man called Mark and his son Isambard Kingdom from now. So the pair, they built the first underground tunnel to cross a navigable river. Today, that holds part of the London Overground, so that's when the Overground actually does go underground. And Mark's son, Isambard, he went on to be one of this country's greatest engineers. Now there's a good chance that if you've been on a long journey in this country, you will have been on, under or through something that man has built. We've got our base of operations on the left, Cherry Garden here. And this is where we basically come to work in the morning. It's where we do our checks on the boats, do our drills before coming into service. That's where we tie the boats up in the evening. Years ago, this was a lighthouse point for Tower Bridge though. On this point in the river, you can see all the way down the reach behind us there. And you've got a clear view of Tower Bridge as well. So as a tall-masted ship came around the bend behind us and they needed the bridge to open, they would hoist the flag, or they would flash a light sequence at night, and the pier would relay that information to the bridge itself. Before we had the internet, nowadays you can just go online and you can book a bridge lift, and we can get in touch with them with our VHF radio. It used to take a little bit longer to open a bridge years ago. It still takes a while now. To lift the bascles themselves, I think they can go from closed to open in less than 90 seconds. But it takes a little bit longer to get everything ready. They've got to stop all the traffic on the bridge. So it probably takes about 10 minutes for them to do it now. We're nearly there. You can see Tower Bridge ahead of us. And our next stop is just the other side of the bridge there, Tower Pier. You've got some moorings either side of the boat here. And people live in these boats. You've got the sailing barge wheel there. I don't think anyone lives on those, they're workers. Hey, Tony, the captain, that's why he's making he used to work on that boat a few years ago now. And they hire out that boat for private charters. But most of these other ones, look, these people sunbathing on their lounges, they live there pretty much all year round. And they're quite clever actually, they bought their boats, but they're not that cheap, they're between 40 and 80 grand in some instances, sometimes probably a little bit more. And they moor them here for about £1,000 a month. About £1,000 a month, which sounds like a lot of money, doesn't it? But if you rented an apartment in the same area as this, of the same size, you're looking at about 3 times that price. And you've got the same view of Tower Bridge, same train links in that, same area. Just got to put up with the boats flying up and down all day and night, sending all your bits and bobs everywhere.
Should we give her a lovely picture, Captain?
So go for another one, I should, Captain.
Yeah, let's do it, Captain.
Should be nice, Captain. Be nice, Captain.
Oh, nice.
I'll go nice and slow.
Alright then, ladies and gents, so as we go through Tower Bridge, we won't go through the centre arch. Okay? I know people like us to go through the centre arch, but that's just obvious, right? And we get a much better picture when we go through the shore arch. So the arch on the right hand side there, closest to the shore, I'll tell you what it is in a moment. You've got St Catherine's Dock on the right hand side. You can see the boat here, and he's waiting to lock in to the dock there. You can see they've lifted the bridge, and they'll open the gate shortly. And you can go in there. It's a nice place to grab some food. If you look off into the distance through the gate, you can see there's luxury craft in there. So you can sit in there. There's a nice pub called the Dickens Inn. You can have a few drinks, spite to eat around there, and look at the £1 million boats. So here we go. Here's a picture, ladies and gents. So you can see, now we're getting a bit closer. Look how the bridge, it perfectly frames the Shard at London Bridge. Can you see that? So the closer we get, the more you can fit inside the gap there. And the best shot is pretty much just as we go through the arch. Look at that, it's a perfect postcard picture there. And that's just something that we sort of notice. We go up and down the river all day long. And over the years, you notice lovely little photo opportunities like that, so we like to share that with you. There might be a couple more as we make our way upstream. You see, we're pretty high against the river wall at the moment. We're getting close to the high tide mark, so we can see a lot better. So about 5 hours ago, 4 or 5 hours ago, we were sitting nearly 7 metres lower in the water. So we're nice and high now, and we can see all the people on the shores, especially on the top deck here. And we get a lot better pictures, and we can see a lot better at this state of tide. So you're picking a perfect time to be out on the river. As I said, folks, in a moment we're going to turn the boat around, and we'll go into our next stop. This is Tower Pier. We're on the right at the moment. After we leave here, we'll be here for about 10 minutes, and then we'll continue further upstream to Westminster Pier. Is anybody getting off here at the Tower of London? A few of yous? All right. And is anybody getting off at Westminster Pier? A couple more of you. Well, I think there's about 2 or 3 of you that don't know where you're going, because that's the only 2 stops. So I'm sure you'll work it out. As I said, folks, we'll be here for a short while. Won't be too long. Just get these 2 people on, and then we'll head off up to Westminster. Someone did ask, they were staying on the boat, and they asked if we leave our old bucket out when they're getting off here at the tower, and we'll leave it there for you for any appreciation for the old commentary. Well, thank you very much for your attention so far, and if you're staying on, we'll be back shortly. Tower Bridge ahead of us, it's going to open. So if you'd like, instead of just going straight towards Westminster Pier, what I'll do is we'll hang around this area for a little bit. Okay, you're right with that. No one's in a rush, are they? Alright, you sure? Because we can't just go, you know, we've got a timetable to upkeep here. No worries. Well, we'll hang about the area because it's due to open in about 4 or 5 minutes. Alright? So we'll hang around the area, we'll get you a nice picture of the bridge opening. And it's opening for the Dutch master here on the right. And you can see they've got a little party on there, a little charter. My friend driving a boat here. He worked on there a couple of years ago now. So that's probably pretty much the only party boat on the river that the bridge will open for. And it has to be the right state of tide. You see the tide is very high at the moment. So it will only it won't fit through the bridge unless they open it. So they'll open it a little bit, and you can probably see they're probably about to start closing off the traffic very soon. So they will open the bridge, you know, any hour of the day. You see, river traffic gets priority over road traffic. Because cars, they can stop quite easily. Boats, it's a little bit of a different story. So you can open the bridge any hour of the day, even rush hour. So we're getting towards our rush hour now. I know it's a Sunday, but it still gets quite busy up on that bridge. But they're still opening. And you can open the bridge completely free of charge. They don't charge you a penny. Not a lot of people realise that. You just got to have a boat that's tall enough. So usually a rule of thumb is it's got to be 9 metres in height. And then you give them 24 hours notice at least. You go on their website and you can book yourselves a bridge thing. So it doesn't really open that often these days. It used to open many, many times a day years ago. Nowadays, it opens a lot more over the weekend, especially in the summer. But there are quite a few days in a week, especially through January and February, could go for a month without opening this bridge. So you're quite lucky to see it today. So I think they just made the announcement to start closing the bridge there. There is one day of the year, it's one day of every year that this bridge, it cannot open. Can't open the bridge. Does anyone know what day that is? It's not Christmas Day or the Queen's birthday. They're good guesses though. It's a bit of a tough one. It's a race. It's a sporting event. You've got it. The London Marathon. You see the Virgin London Marathon. Part of the course is Tower Bridge, and it's about the halfway marker. So for 24 hours, the official length of that race, the bridge cannot and will not open. So we're nearly there. We're just waiting for the last few people to get across by the look of it, I think. I don't know. Hopefully it's going to open. Imagine all that for nothing. I'd like a right wally, wouldn't I? I'm sure it will. Well, whilst we're waiting here, what I'll do for the time being, I'll just say a little bit about the Tower of London on the left-hand side there. So you've got that huge castle fortress on the left, and parts of that building are almost 1,000 years old. And they date back to the reign of William the Conqueror, who conquered England back in 1066. So he first started to build this tower on the river, and that's the big square fortress in the middle with the 4 turrets, the White Tower, the Norman's Keep. Does anybody know what William the Conqueror was called before he conquered England? Yeah, he probably just built to his friends. Yeah. No, he was William of Normandy. I think someone said it. He had another name as well. I can't say it over the microphone, not with all the children on board. It's a little bit rude, but it is factual. What I can probably tell you though is his parents, they weren't married. And you might get it if you watch Game of Thrones. There you go. Still can't say it. So there we go, they're actually doing it now. They've stopped the traffic. Look, you've got the wardens on the bridge, they're shoving everyone along. There's a couple of people. Look, this person, he's in no rush. Look at him. He don't care. The people behind him. Look, he's going to take a picture. Look. Come on, mate. We're waiting. Liberties, that is. So you can see we're nice and close to the bridge. Don't worry, we won't hit it. Okay. We won't hit the bridge. Right, the tide is pushing against us at the moment. So we can get as close as we want. And the tide is constantly pushing us the other way. So once the traffic's all clear, it is quite quick to open the bridge. It will open in about, well, to its full extent in about 90 seconds. It's under that. So as soon as they're clear, it'll open quite quickly and the bridge will go through. And then what we'll do, once the boat starts to come through, we'll turn straight behind it and then you get a picture of the boat going through the bridge. Okay, so our friend at the wheel here, he'll skillfully manoeuvre the boat. He's good at this. You know, he's been doing this job for about 3 or 4 days now. Yeah, he's got quite good at it. And we'll get you the best photo opportunity, alright? So we'll see the bridge open quite far, ladies and gents. It won't open to its full extent though. It won't open anywhere near its full extent. They just open it enough to let that boat go through. So it's opened a little bit wider than this today, and we'll see. But the only time the bridge will ever open to its full extent, a full 90 degrees, is when a member of the royal family is passing through. Someone like the Queen, as is seen as a royal salute. So any second now.
Nice guy.
Here we go, ladies and gents. Here it goes. We're nearly there. And if you look up, look at the top walkways there. Can you see about halfway along? You've got glass platforms, so you can see all the way down. Look at all those people. They have picked the best possible time to be up there. Imagine that, you're up there, and the roadway is literally lifting beneath your feet, and now a ship is going to go past between your legs. Incredible that. I've never done that. I've always said that's the best time to be up there, I tell you. So here we go, as soon as it's through, because they don't hang about, so they need to let their road traffic through. We'll quickly chuck the boat around now. We're getting a nice picture. Wonderful. How was that, ladies and gents? Is that all right? Fantastic. You're a nice guy, you are. Oh, there we go. We're facing the right way now. We'll take you in the right direction. And it'll take us about 20 minutes, roughly, to get to Westminster Pier. Now, on the way, ladies and gents, it's up to you, really. You see, I was just pointing a few things out for you, because obviously that's a little bit out of the ordinary. We have an audio guide on the boat, a pre-recorded machine, a robot. We don't really like to play the robot, to be honest with you. Where we can, we prefer to just do this. Come out as crew, tell you some bits and bobs that we know. Hopefully it makes the journey a little bit better, certainly a little bit better than a robot. So is it all right with you if I just carry on the microphone and point some more bits and bobs out? Very enthusiastic. No problem, it's fine. I'm happy to do it, ladies and gents. And what we'll do is we'll continue, for the time being, we'll continue on the left-hand side. On the left you've got, at the moment, 2 warships. You've got the one on the outside here, and this is a visiting warship from Belgium, and Leopold. And we do get warships from all over the world come and visit us for a few days. The most recent one that we had here before this was from Korea. And sometimes we even get cruise ships, small cruise ships, more alongside the Belfast as well, and they use it as a ferry terminal. So their passengers get ferried across to customs on the right-hand tower here, and then they'll head out to sea. So these people, I'm not sure why they're here. I guess they're just on a holiday. Look at that man at the back with his feet up. So just making the most of their time off, I suppose. The ship that is moored alongside, the larger warship, the HMS Belfast, the largest town cruiser commissioned by the Royal Navy in its day. And it's been moored here since the 70s. So it's always here to Belfast. And you can go on board that ship and explore. You can have a good look around. You can go right down into the engine rooms if you want, go up to the captain's bridge. There's not many places on there that you can't look around. There's a few buildings on the right hand side. The one behind the trees there, that's Waterguard House, home to Her Majesty's Customs in London. So if you have anything confiscated from you in London, maybe at the airport, anything illegal, any cigarettes, alcohol, they bring it to this building and then they destroy it in their incinerators in a basement. You can see the little chimneys on the roof there. I've worked on this roof for many years now, and I've never seen a single puff of smoke come from those chimneys. So you tell me what they do with it. I've heard their Christmas parties are pretty good. You stay on the right, you've got the tall building there with a curved roof, a walkie-talkie tower. At the top of that building, they have London's tallest rooftop garden. The Sky Garden is at the top of that building. And that is completely free of charge to visit. So you can go up there, it's free. I don't know why, just know it is. You can book your place online. Sky Garden London is their website. Has anybody been up there before, the Sky Garden? You have? How much did you pay? Nothing. See? It sounds like I make this stuff up sometimes, but it's all absolutely true. Oh, I found a space before, don't worry. Have a little look on their website. The bridge, ladies and gents, London Bridge. If you look left and right, you'll see the name of the bridge engraved into the stone. It makes for a lovely picture as we pass through. And it is at least the 5th London Bridge to stand at this point in the river in about 2,000 years. And the first one was built by Romans all those years ago. The one before this one was sinking into the mud of the Thames. An American businessman bought that London Bridge. Robert McCulloch was his name. And he had it taken to pieces over here and he shipped it over to America. Does anyone know where in America? Shout it out. Lake Havasu, absolutely right. And that's out in Arizona. So it's pretty much in the middle of the desert. I've heard they call it Lake Havasu as well, because they like to go out there for spring break or something like that. Over to the left for the children, you can see a pirate ship in the dockway. So with the scaffolding around it, the replica of Francis Drake's tuna galleon, the Golden Hind. Drake was a privateer, so a legalized pirate, and he sailed around the world in a ship exactly like that. That's for the children. Something for the adults. On the right, you'll see a row of windows, and if you're lucky, you'll see semi-naked people. There's a few there today. This is a luxury health spa on the right. People sit in these chairs, as you can see, with not a lot on. And some days are better than others. I'm not sure what to make of today, really. So you're quite lucky. Honestly, there are horrifying things sometimes. There really is. I wish you never looked. Over to the left, with the red window frames, you'll see the Anchor Tavern at Bankside, one of London's oldest pubs, and parts of it are over 400 100 years old now. It was built back in 1615. And it's a lovely pub to visit, not just because of the history. It has one of the best beer gardens on the river. Can you see the outside bars there? There's lots of people enjoying it. Just sit there, have a few drinks on the river, and you can watch the boats go by in the sunshine. You see, we're just passing through Southwark Road Bridge here, and then over to the left, you've got a white rounded building with timber frames. It has a thatch roof. The only building in London with wooden thatch. These materials were outlawed. They were banned ever since the Great Fire of 1666. You see this building on the left is the replica of Shakespeare's Globe Theatre. In fact, every day now until about November, they will reenact his plays inside that building in the traditional way. They do 2 plays every day, one in the morning, one in the afternoon. At the moment, I think they're doing Henry VIII. And you can pick up a standing ticket on the left. A starting price of a ticket is just £5, which is incredible value for money for a live show in London. You can't even get a pint of beer for £5 in London these days, and they're giving you a whole show on the left. It's incredible. And then the next bridge is the Millennium Bridge. The architect of this bridge, Norman Foster, and he calls this the Blade of Light. When he designed it, he said when people cross this bridge, it will look like they are walking on air. So, I'm not really sure what he was on at that time. It's probably something a little bit stronger than air, if you ask me, but there you go. A lot of people in London call it the Wibbly Wobbly Bridge. On its opening day in June 2000s, the bridge started to sway or wobble from side to side. So if these people were on the bridge on its opening day, they wouldn't be waving with joy. They'd be waving in fear for help. The bridge was swaying so violently, people were falling over, people were being sick, and they had to close the bridge in the afternoon. It remained closed for nearly 2 years to correct the problem and to re-strengthen the supports. Ever since then, we still call it the Wibbly Wobbly Bridge. Right, and you can feel we've slowed the boat right down now. You see the tide is very high at the moment. In the bridge ahead of us, Blackfriars, is the lowest bridge on our journey today. So a lot of the boats, they need to take the centre arch. So they can't take the shore arch, the one to the left there, most of them, because the tide is too high. We have to take the centre arch because it's nearly a metre taller. So we just have to wait for the other traffic to get past, and then we'll go through the centres. You've got St Paul's Cathedral on the right, 365 feet tall. Designed by Christopher Wren, and when it was completed, this was the tallest building anywhere in London. And it remained that way right up until about the 1960s. For many years, and that was by law. Today there are plenty of skyscrapers going up in London. One of our newer skyscrapers is just ahead of us at the moment. The building that gets a bit wider to the side there, we call this the Boomerang. Its official name is number 1 Blackfriars, and this is an apartment complex. The apartments, when they went up for sale, this was a couple of years ago now, the cheapest apartment in that building was about £2 million. The penthouse apartment, so the most expensive one, £18 million it was listed for. It gives you an idea of how much it costs to live in London these days. And the bridges ahead of us, Blackfriars. The first one is the Blackfriars Railway. Some of you might recognise this. It was in a film also about 3 or 4 years ago. Tom Cruise, he was running across the route. They were filming for the most recent Mission Impossible installment. Mission Impossible 34. It's been a lot of them, hasn't it? It was called Fallout. He does his own stunts, doesn't he, Tom? He's running across the road. You've got these red pillars like the signs we pass through, the supports from the first ever railway crossing, the Alexandra Bridge. And then we have, as I said before, the lowest bridge on our journey, the Blackfriars Road. See how close we are to the top of the arch? So if the tide got any higher than this, wouldn't even be able to fit through the centre arch. But the bridge, we would have to wait for that side to drop a little bit before we could continue service. And the Blackfriars bridges are roughly halfway in the trip to Westminster Pier. So I hope you all enjoyed yourselves so far, ladies and gents. You're all having a nice time. It's a lovely day today. And if you're not from London, it's always like this. Honestly, it's always sunny in London. You've got a construction site on the right-hand side. You can see all these cranes and this big steel wall here. And this is part of the Thames Tideway Tunnel project. So inside here, they're digging a very large tunnel beneath the riverbeds. And this is to extend London's sewer system. So London's current sewers were built over 150 years ago in Victorian times by Joseph Bazalgette. And he designed that sewer when the population of London was less than 1 million. Today there's closer to 10 million people living and working in London. And so obviously we have to build, a much larger sewer. I have to cope with all that, the sheer amount of sewage that there is these days. So that's what they're doing over here. And you've got some old filming studios on the left. So the two buildings behind the trees and a tall office block with a scaffolding around it. This is Kent House. And these were the London-based studios for ITV. So they used to film the news from the tower behind there. And a programme this morning, some of you from this country, with Phil and Holly, that was filmed in the smaller building, just before the trees there. And they use this section of river as the backdrop. Yeah, they don't film it there anymore, but they still pre-record the river behind them. So you never know, we might be on telly in the next few days. So give them a little wave over there. And if you're with someone that you shouldn't be, obviously look the other way maybe. Sure they won't see. On the right, you've got an old warship here. The white one with the yellow funnel, the HQS Wellington. And this is an old New Zealand naval sloop. There's a clubhouse today for the company of master mariners. Do we remember? Oh, there's a seal there on the right as well, just in the bow of the ship. Can you see the little seal with his head poking out? Look at that. I think he's got a fish as well. He's back up again. Look, there he is. We trained that seal to pop up at this point. That's Sammy, that is. Sammy the seal. He loves his job, he does. I play him with fish, eels, he loves them. And a lovely picture ahead of the boat, ladies and gents. Oh, you've had a right treat. You've seen Tower Bridge over, you've seen a seal. What more do you want? You've got a lovely picture ahead of us, look at that. You've got Waterloo Bridge there, you've got the London Eye, the Parliament buildings in the distance. And as I said, we're very high against the river at the moment. We're at high tide and you can see a lot more into the distance. It's the best time to get these sorts of pictures. The bridge itself, Waterloo Road Bridge. You can see the name up there. It is known as the Ladies' Bridge. It was built in the Second World War by an almost entirely female workforce. So near enough 80% of the labour on this bridge was done by women. And if you're familiar with a song called Waterloo Sunset, which is by a band called The Kinks, yeah, that was written with inspiration of standing on this very bridge. And if you're familiar with a song it's just called Waterloo, and that one's by a group called ABBA. Have you heard that one? Yeah. That has nothing to do with this bridge. That's just a good song. And then on the right you can see a white building with a flat green roof, the Savoy Hotel. Probably the most luxurious and most expensive hotel in London. The cheapest rooms at the Savoy, probably just over £1,000 a night. That's their cheapest rooms. You can hire out their royal suites. One of their royal suites has been designed by Gucci. That one happens to go out at £16,000 per night. 16 grand. And that, it doesn't even include breakfast. If you want a full English breakfast, it's about £60 per person. Comes with 2 sausages though at breakfast. It's all bad. A Royal Festival Hall on the left, a concert hall, and that was built back in 1951 for the Festival of Britain. The likes of Shirley Bassey, Pavarotti, Frank Sinatra, Elton John, they've all performed in that building. It is now home to London's Philharmonic Orchestra. And the last bridge we'll go beneath today, Charing Cross Railway Bridge, and either side the Jubilee suspension walkways. Now if you see anyone up on the bridges, there's usually lots of people. I like to give them a little smile and a wave. So we wave to the people on these bridges. It just makes them all happy. I think anywhere in the world, if you wave to someone from a boat, they'll smile and wave back at you. Yeah. And that only works on a boat though. Please don't walk around the streets of London waving at strangers now, because you get a different response, I reckon. They'll think you're crazy. And on the left hand side you will see the London Eye. It's about 450 feet tall, this wheel. And there are 32 pods, capsules, around the outside of it. Each capsule represents a borough of Greater London. So 32 boroughs make up Greater London, 32 pods on the London Eye. And they say you can see all of London's 32 boroughs from the top of this wheel. You can see how busy it gets. Pretty much every single pod is completely full. You've got the odd empty one. Some of the pods, they hire them out privately. Hire them out for different things, you see. Some people have been known to get married on the London Eye. You can get married on this wheel. It's not really something that I recommend though. Marriage, that is. But if you were going to do it, you could do it on the London Eye. That is an option. You never know, you might want to. And then, just a moment, ladies and gents, we're going to turn the boat around again. We'll angle the boat, we'll give you a nice view, and you can get another lovely picture of the Houses of Parliament. Okay, the Palace of Westminster. Can anybody see Big Ben?
Yes.
A few of you right, a few of you wrong. So it's a trick question actually, it's not really fair, because you can't actually see Big Ben, but you can only hear it. And Big Ben is the name of the really big bell that's inside that clock tower with the 4 faces. The bell is supposed to chime on the hour, and we didn't hear it chime for 5 o'clock. The bell has been turned off. About 4 or 5 years now, they took the batteries out of the back, I don't know how it works. And it hasn't been chiming. You see, up until about a month ago, the tower was completely covered in scaffolding. So they've taken it all away now, they're nearly done. So hopefully soon we'll hear Big Ben dong again. So that's what he does, he dongs Ben. And you're probably thinking, Ben is a very strange name for a bell, where'd they get that from? Well, it's just a nickname, and they named it after the man who was in charge of all the building works at the time of its completion. His name was Sir Benjamin Hall. He did such a good job, and some say he even quite resembled this bell, because he was about 5 foot tall, nearly 5 foot round, and he was a rather loud man, they say. So they thought they'd name the bell after him, which I know that is quite funny, isn't it? But just think how funny it would have been if his name was Richard. Imagine that, if they had to call it, you know, big, rich. You got it, she got it. Took a little while longer, but she's there now. Some of you are on my wavelength. Some of you might get it out a little bit later on. Some of you will probably never get it. You can ask me when you get off, I'll tell you, don't worry. And on that note, ladies and gents, we're going to start to take you into our next stop, Westminster Pier. As we approach the pier, I must ask you now, ladies and gents, to finish taking your pictures and then return to your seats. Stay in your seats until we're fully secure alongside. We may bump slightly as we touch. So if you can stay in your seats, that'll be great, thank you. I'm sure most of you will be leaving us here for Westminster and the Eye. Make the most of this opportunity to gather your belongings. Check underneath your seats, you may have dropped something. Don't leave something behind to spoil your day. And well, last of all, ladies and gents, I would just like to thank each and every one of you on board today for your very kind attention throughout the trip. I do appreciate that everyone on the boat today will have English as their first language, but you've all sat there very patiently and very quietly throughout the trip. You've given me your full attention, and that makes this a hell of a lot easier for me. So for that, I really do thank you. Thank you very much, ladies and gents. Oh guys, please, don't stop. No, that means a lot, ladies and gents. No, it really does. Because as I said at the start, we are these sort of talented, professional, multilingual tour guides. We are just your crew. The company, they don't hire tour guides, they just leave us with a machine, basically. And when we play the machine, we just get really bad feedback from passengers. We get a lot better feedback when we do the live commentary. So over the years, it's just become a tradition for us to pass on a few words in this way. We don't receive any sort of training to do this. Anything I've shared with you today is just stuff that we learn whilst working out on the river, you see. We do them voluntary. And as they are done by the crew, we have an old custom on the river. And what we do is we leave a little silver champagne ice bucket, there it is, and we plonk that in the exit gate. Okay, that's just our old tip bucket, folks. So if you've enjoyed or understood, if you'd like to show any appreciation, you're more than welcome to throw in any small change. You know, like your 10, 20, 50 pound notes, anything to be greatly received. It's worth a try, isn't it? And anything you do give, ladies and gentlemen, it really doesn't go to waste, because it really, really helps out with the intense research that we conduct every evening after work in the pub. Well, whatever the outcome, I hope you've enjoyed. Have a lovely stay and a safe onward journey. Thanks again. Thank you. Cheers, folks.